I mean, don't we have so many John Bolton fans in chat today? John Bolton maniacs, Boltons, Bolters. Is that what you all call yourselves? The Walrus Children? I don't know what you all refer to yourself as. But the FBI is searching the home of former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton, who also worked in the Bush administration, and is probably one of Washington, D.C.'s most well-known primo war hawks and neoconservatives, still known in popular consensus and regular booked on cable TV to keep those ideas out there, and published a book about his time in the Trump administration, which I did read actually a fair bit of, and I thought was rather revealing about the man Donald Trump. Not necessarily very convincing when it comes to some of the ideas that I still very much disagree with Mr. Bolton on, but it did give me a pretty interesting insight into into Donald Trump as a leader himself. In many areas, just a complete lack of knowledge he would go into many of these different high-profile negotiations with on just a base level. But John Bolton, having been published that book, having been on TV and criticizing the Trump administration since his time in the White House, saying that it was chaotic, saying that Trump didn't know what he was doing, saying that he was surrounded by kiss asses and XYZ, that he's completely self-motivated. This means that John Bolton is probably one of Trump's loudest critics who's come out of his administration, who's still out there, and Trump has just not been able to shut him up, and he just keeps talking. And so Trump, I think, has gotten fed up of the dude trashing him, of the dude expressing his First Amendment rights to say that he thinks he's a bad leader, that he thinks he doesn't know anything about national security, to think that he's got bad judgment, to think that he's self-motivated, to think that he goes into these situations completely unprepared. He doesn't want that, so he's just decided, screw it, I'm going to launch an investigation into John Bolton. And not only am I going to launch an investigation into John Bolton, we're going to have the FBI raid John Bolton's home and his office looking for dirt on him, even though the administration has not been able to state any crime that John Bolton's been involved in. No crime, no illegal activity. When you talk about when Donald Trump's home was raided, his crime was withholding classified documents from the National Archives after being given multiple opportunities to give them up and lying about it and continuing to hide them, right? That is the crime. What is the crime John Bolton is accused of? And mind you, that FBI, that raid of Donald Trump's home was done with no involvement of the Biden administration. This FBI is one of the most openly declared partisan FBIs, headed by Kash Patel, who openly said he wanted to go after Donald Trump's enemies while he was out there going on podcast land in the lead up to becoming one of the most powerful men in the country. And who does he got to reel him in? His co-director, Dan Bongino. Another yelly, talky personality. And how do you get Trump's attention? How do you get Trump's support? Especially if you're fucking up and messing up all that Epstein stuff. If it wasn't due to how poorly Kash Patel rolled out that Epstein stuff, the storm out that Dan Bongino did, in protest, and I mean, obviously how Pam Bondi bundled it, but due to all these different people messing it up in their own different ways, Kash Patel going on Joe Rogan saying, oh, I'm going to release the Jeffrey Epstein stuff completely raw and unedited, and then releases it not raw, and it is clearly edited. Like, these mistakes, losing credibility with the base. How do you get back in Donald Trump's good graces? Well, you do what you said you were going to do and what got you on his radar in the first place. You go after his enemies. You raid John Bolton's home, you raid his office, and you find anything you can do to shut up this enemy of the President of the United States. Federal agents were seen Friday morning searching the Maryland residence and Washington, D.C. office home of Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton. The sources familiar with the matter told ABC News that the search carried out by the FBI was related to allegations that Bolton is in possession of classified records. No one is above the law at FBI agents on mission, Director Kash Patel said on social media. It was not immediately clear what sensitive records they believe Bolton may have possessed. The federal agents, along with approximately question, do you think they asked John Bolton to turn over the documents in advance, or do you even think there is documents to begin with? We don't know. They haven't communicated this. The federal agents, along with approximately 6 FBI vehicles, were seen at Bolton's home for over an hour early this morning around 7 a.m. Local Montgomery County police were observed by ABC News blocking both entrances to Bolton Street, but have since left. Agents were seen coming in and out of the house, and the FBI personnel were seen taking boxes out of the house and into vehicles. The extraordinary move came as President Donald Trump has recently ramped up pressure on the Justice Department to bring about charges against his political opponents. Bolton has long been a target of Trump's ire. Most recently, Trump has taken aim at Bolton's criticism of his engagements with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump told reporters Friday morning that he didn't know about the FBI search of Bolton's home. When asked about whether he expects the Justice Department to brief him on the search, Trump said that they would probably give him updates today sometime, but added that he didn't want to know about the details. You have to do what you have to do. I don't want to know about it, Trump said in reference to Attorney General Chan Bondi and others involved in the investigation. America's safety isn't negotiable, Bondi said in response to Patel's earlier post on social media. Justice will be pursued, always. A federal magistrate judge in Maryland signed off on the search. Another federal magistrate judge in Washington had authorized a search of his downtown D.C. office. To obtain such a warrant, investigators need to have probable cause of a violation of federal law. That means authorities would need to convince a judge that there is sufficient reason based on facts to believe that a crime has been committed. The search, however, does not mean prosecutors have determined Bolton has committed a crime. So until they say what documents have been retrieved, or what classified material has been retrieved, or we figure out if there was any communication with Bolton beforehand to see if they could retrieve these documents in some other way. This seems probably, knowing Trump's record, knowing the deep shit Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are in right now, this is probably them trying to snipe Bolton in order to get in the better graces of Donald Trump, considering their recent misgivings, their recent mistakes. J.D. Vance, though, was quick to get on TV and talk about how he saw it.
We've learned that the FBI is searching the home of former Ambassador John Bolton, his office as well.
Sure.
Can you tell me, why is the FBI raiding Ambassador Bolton's home and office, and did the White House get a heads up?
Well, so we're in the very early stages of an ongoing investigation into John Bolton. I will say we're going to let that investigation proceed. What I can tell you is that unlike the Biden DOJ and the Biden FBI, our law enforcement agencies are going to be driven by law and not by politics. And so if we think that Ambassador Bolton has committed a crime, of course, eventually prosecutions will come. But as you know, Kristen, this is all part of gathering evidence, trying to understand something that we're worried about. And of course, I'll let the FBI comment on the next stage of the investigation.
What's at the root of this? Is this about classified documents?
Well, again, I'll let the FBI speak to that. Classified documents are certainly part of it, but I think that there's a broad concern about Ambassador Bolton. They're going to look into it. And like I said, if there's no crime here.
A broad concern. What's the crime? Broad concern, sir. Broad concern.
We're not going to prosecute it. If there is a crime here, of course, Ambassador Bolton will get his day in court. That's how it should be. But again, our focus here is on, did he break the law? Did he commit crimes against the American people? If so, then he deserves to be prosecuted.
Where's the Trump loyalists getting their house raided? Look, to me, it seems pretty clear this is Pam Bondi and Kash Patel trying to dig themselves out of hot shit, and they're using John Bolton as the shovel. Whether or not they're going to find something on Bolton, I do not know. I am not Bolton's nanny, so I can't say if he has been involved in some sort of legal misgivings. But to disconnect this from his critique with the administration, considering they're more than willing to lock up college students for articles going after the state of Israel, I think would be silly. I think would be very silly. And I think anything that they can do to get this Epstein shit still out of the headlines, definitely considering the people at the head of this raid are those who got it in the headlines in the first place, I think they're going to do. The BBC had David from The Atlantic on to talk about it for whatever reason.
One of the themes of the Trump administration is that while there are many secrets, there are no mysteries. It takes a lot of effort not to see what happened today, but there are people up to that effort. You need to understand the sick psychological dynamic of what President Trump is up to with these prosecutions, and not to see just the John Bolton prosecution, but also to see that his Justice Department is simultaneously bringing actions against New York Attorney General Letitia James, is bringing actions against a Federal Reserve Board chairman. What Donald Trump is doing is going through the list of crimes for which he was either indicted or duly convicted, and saying, I want to find someone else to punish for the crimes I was indicted for or convicted for. So Donald Trump stole dozens of boxes of highly classified documents, including reportedly nuclear secrets. So let me go after someone else for classified information. Donald Trump was convicted of falsifying business records in order to deceive banks and other lenders about the value of his properties. Let me go after other opponents of mine for the same crime for which I was convicted. And that is what is going on here. This is the working out of a psychological drama. And the place to study this is not in the field of law and not to look for, is John Bolton more like other people in the past who have also had published books that used information they had? You need to understand what the president is up to here. I speak to you from a city where military personnel are patrolling the streets with live ammunition after Donald Trump has sent military personnel to the streets of Los Angeles, soon, as he said today, New York and Chicago. So we need to understand this as it is, and not to try to make this seem more normal or like other administrations of the past. This is unlike anything we've ever seen before. In the same way, the scale of bribes that Donald Trump is soliciting and receiving is unlike anything in American history.
So the crypto bribe scam is pretty gigantic. Oh, sorry. Found some of the documents in John Bolton's home. Oops, how'd that get there? Bernie Sanders. Talk about Mr. Bolton. John Bolton and I have nothing in common politically. But last I heard, in America, people are allowed to criticize the president of the United States without the FBI showing up on their doorstep. Just another step in Trump's march towards authoritarianism. Okay.